Hi guys, I'm back. Today I'm going to read 1 Samuel 23 to 28, Proverbs 11, and Psalm 135. Let's get started. Now they told David, "Behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and are robbing the threshing floors." Therefore David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go and attack these Philistines?" And the Lord said to David, "Go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah." And David said, the men said to him, "We are afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines?" And then David inquired of the Lord again, and the Lord answered, "Alright, go down to Keilah, for I'll give the Philistines into your hand." And David and his men went into Keilah and fought with the Philistines and brought away their livestock and struck it with the great blow. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. Then Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, had fled to David to Keilah. He had come down with an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David had come to Keilah. And Saul said, "God has given him into my hand, for he has shut himself in by entering into 100 gates and bars." And Saul summoned all the people to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. David knew that Saul was plotting harm against him. And he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring the ephod here." And David said, "O Lord, God of Israel, the Lord has surely heard that the sword used to come to kill Keilah, to destroy the city of my account. And the men of Keilah surrendered me into his hand. Then Saul come down, as your servant said, O Lord, the God of Israel, please tell your servant." And the Lord said, "He will come down." And the Lord said, "And they will surrender you." And David and his men, who were about 600, arose and departed from Keilah. And they went where they could go, and Saul told that David had escaped from Keilah. He gave up the expedition, and David remained in the strongholds in the wilderness, in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God did not give him into his hand. And David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life. David was in the wilderness of Ziph and Horesh. And Jonathan, Saul's son, rose and went to David at Horesh, and strengthened his hand in God. And he said, "Do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you." Saul my father also knows this. And the two of them made a covenant before the Lord. David remained at Horesh, and Jonathan went home, and the Ziphites went up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is not David hiding among us in the strongholds at Horesh, on the hill of Hachilah, which is south of Jeshimon? And I'll come down, okay, according to all your heart's desire to come down, and our part shall be to surrender him into the king's hand." And Saul said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, for you have had compassion on me. Go, make it more sure. Know and see the place where his foot is, and who has seen him there. However, it was told me that he is very cunning. See therefore and take note of all the lurking places where he hides, and come back to me with sure information, and I will go with you. And if he is in the land, I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah." And they arose and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, and the Arabites in the south of Jeshimon. And Saul and his men went to seek him. And David was told, so he went down to the rock and lived in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. And David was hurrying to get away from Saul. And Saul and his men were closing in on David and his men to capture them. The messenger came to Saul, saying, "Hurry up and come, for the Philistines have made a raid against the land." So Saul returned from pursuing after David, and went against the Philistines. Therefore that place was called the Rock of Escape. And David went out from there and lived in the strongholds of En-Gedi. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was shocked. He held David in the wilderness of En-Gedi. And Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to see David and his men in front of the wild goat rock. And he came to sheepfolds by the way, where there was a cave. And Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. And the men of David said to him, "The day of which the Lord said to him, Behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you." And David arose and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And afterward David's heart struck him, and because he cut off a corner of Saul's robe, and he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing that he is the Lord's anointed." So David persuaded his men with these words, and did not permit them to attack Saul. And Saul rose up and left the cave and went on his way. After David also arose and went out of the cave, and called after Saul, "My Lord the king." And Saul looked behind him, and David bowed with his face to the earth, and paid homage. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, Behold, David seeks your help? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you today into my hand in the cave. And some told me to kill you, but I spared you. said, I will not put out my hand against my Lord. But here's the Lord's anointed. See, my father, see the corner of your robe in my hand. For by the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see that there's no wrong or treason in my hand. I have not sinned against you, though you harmed my life to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you, and may the Lord avenge me against you, that my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. May the Lord therefore be judge and give sentence between me and you, and see to it and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand. As soon as David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, You are more righteous than I. You repay me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt well with me, and that you did not kill me. And the Lord put me into your hand. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away safe? So may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. And now behold, I know that you shall surely be king, and the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me therefore by the Lord that you will not be cut off from my offspring after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house. So David swore to Saul, and Saul went home, and David and his men went up to the stronghold. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him. And they buried him in his house at Ramah. And then David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Mound whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful. The man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite, and David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, Go up to Carmel, and go to Nabal and greet him in my name, and thus you shall greet him. And peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. No shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, they'll tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes. When we come on a feast day, please give whatever you have at hand to your servant and to your son David. When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David. And then they waited, and Nabal answered David's servants, Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Are there many servants beyond mine? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers, and give it to men who come from I do not know where? So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, Every man strap on his sword, and every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword, and about 400 men went after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. And one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet the master, and he routed them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything, and we were in the fields as long as we went with them. They were a wall to us both by night and by day, and all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this, and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and guilt, and against all his house. And he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. And Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine, and 5 sheep already prepared, and 5 seahs of parched grain, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her young men, Go in before me, behold, I come after you. And she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the donkey and came down under cover of the mountain, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, Surely in vain I have guarded all this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him. And he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David, and more if by morning at least so much as one male of all who belonged to him. And Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, On me alone, my Lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears, and hear the words of your servant. And not my Lord regard this worthless fellow, Nabal, for as his name is, so men of my Lord, you whom he sent. Now then, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt and for saying with your own hand, saving with your own hand. Now let your enemies and those who seek to do evil, and to my Lord be his neighbor. And now let this present that your son has brought to my Lord be given to the men who follow my Lord. May they forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because the Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living, under the care of the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies you shall sling out as from the hole of a sling. And the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good things he has spoken concerning you, and upon you, Prince of Israel, my Lord shall have no grief or pangs, or conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord working salvation himself. And the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, and remember your servant. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who has kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. For as surely as the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly that morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one meal. And that David received from her hand what she had brought him. And he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice, and I have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was very merry within her, and he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned to the evil of Nabal on his own head. And David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her as his wife. And the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel. They said, David sent us to you to take you to him as his wife. And she rose and bowed with her face on the ground and said, Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of your servants of my Lord. And Abigail hurried and rose and mounted a donkey, and 5 young women attended her. She followed the messengers and with David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and both of them became his wives. Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Palti son of Laish, who was of Galim. And the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, Is not David hiding himself on the hill of Hachilah, which is on the east of Jeshimon? So Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph with the 3,000 chosen men of Israel to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul encamped on the hill of Hachilah, which is beside the road on the east of Jeshimon. But David remained in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David sent out spies and learned that Saul had indeed come. And David rose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, with Abner the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Saul was lying within the game camp, while the army was encamped around him. Then David said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Joab's brother Abishai the son of Zeruiah, who will go down with me into the camp to Saul. And Abishai said, I will go down with you. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there lay Saul sleeping within the encampment, and with his spear stuck in the ground at his head, and Abner and the army lay around him. And Abishai struck and said to David, God has given your enemy into your hand this day. Now please let him pin him to the earth with one stroke of his spear, and I'll not strike him twice. And David said to Abishai, Do not destroy him, for who can put out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be killed thus? And David said, As the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die, or he will go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should put out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But take now the spear that is at his head, and the jar of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw on you, and all did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them. And David went over to the other side and stood far off on the top of the hill, and there was a great space between them. And David called to the young man, to Abner the son of Ner, saying, Will you not answer Abner? And Abner answered, Who are you who calls to the king? And David said to Abner, Are you not a man? For who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not kept watch over the Lord your king? For one of the people came into Assure the king, your lord, that the thing that you have done is not good as the Lord lives, and you deserve to die, because you have not kept watch over your Lord, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the jar of water that is beside his head. Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" And David said, "Hear my voice, my Lord, O king." And he said, "Why does my Lord pursue after his servant? For what have I done? Why evil is on my hands? Now therefore let my Lord the king hear these words." Hear the words of his servant. If it is the Lord who has stirred you up against me, may he accept an offering. But if it is men, may they be cursed before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day, that I should have no share in the heritage of the Lord, saying, "Go serve other gods." Now therefore let not my blood fall from the earth, away from the presence of the Lord. And the king of Israel has come out to see, singly, like one who hunts a partridge in the mountains. And Saul said, "I have sinned. Return my son David. I will no more do you harm, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Now I have acted foolishly and made a great mistake." And David answered and said, "Here is the spear, O king. Let one of the young men come over and take it. The Lord rewards every man who has righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord gave you into my hand today, and I will not put out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Behold, as your life was precious this day in thy sight, so may my life be precious in the sight of the Lord, and may he deliver me out of all tribulation." And Saul said to David, "Blessed be you, my son David. You will do many things and will succeed in them." So David went his way, and Saul returned to his place. And David said in his heart, "Now I shall perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should escape to the land of Philistines. And Saul will despair of seeking me any longer within the borders of Israel, and I shall escape out of his hand." So David arose and went over, he and the 600 men who were with him, to Achish the son of Malch, king of Gath. And David lived with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, and David with his 2 wives. Now he and Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail of Carmel, Nabal's widow. And when it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, he no longer sought him. And David said to Achish, "If I have found favor in your eyes, let a place be given me in one of the rural country towns, that I may dwell there. But why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?" For that day Achish gave him Ziklag. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. And the number of the days that David lived in the country of the Philistines was a year and 4 months. Now David and his men went up and made raids against the Geshurites, the Gerzites, and the Amalekites. Well, these were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as far as Shur, to the land of Egypt. When David would strike the land, and would leave neither man nor woman alive, and would take away the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, the camels, and the garments, and come back to Achish. When Achish asked, "Where have you made a raid to?" David would say, "Against the Negev of Judah, or against the Negev of the Jerahmeelites, or against the Negev of the Kenites." And David would leave neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, thinking, lest they should tell about us, and say, "So David has done." Thus, such as was his custom, all the while he lived in the country of the Philistines. And Achish trusted David, thinking, "He has made himself an utter stench to his people Israel, therefore he shall always be my servant." In those days the Philistines gathered their forces of war for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, "I understand that you and your men are to go out with me in the army." And David said to Achish, "Very well, you shall know that what your servant can do." And Achish said to David, "Very well, I'll make you my bodyguard for life." And now Samuel had died, and all Israel mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the necromancers out of the land. And the Philistines assembled and encamped at Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. When Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Seek out for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servant said to me, "Behold, there is a medium at Endor." So Saul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, he and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night, and he said, "Divine for me by a spirit, and bring up for me whomever I shall name to you." And the woman said to me, "Surely you know that Saul is not, and he has cut off the mediums and the necromancers from the land. And then are you laying a trap for my life to bring about my death?" And Saul swore to her by the Lord, "As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." And the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" He said, "Bring up Samuel for me." And the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? And he asked Saul, the king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a god coming up out of the earth." He said to her, "What is his appearance?" And she said, "An old man is coming, and he is wrapped in a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. And Samuel said to Saul, "Why are you disturbing me by bringing up?" And Saul answered, "I am in great distress, for the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answers me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have summoned you to tell me what I shall do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since the Lord has turned from me and become your enemy? The Lord has done to you as he spoke by me. And the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord and did not carry out his fierce wrath against Amalek. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will give Israel also with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will give the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines." And Saul fell at once at full length on the ground, filled with fear because of the words Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. And the woman came to Saul, and when she saw that he was terrified, she said to him, "Behold, your servant has obeyed you. I have taken my life in my hand, and have listened to what you have said to me. Now therefore you also obey your servant. Let me set a morsel of bread before you, and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way." He refused and said, "I will not eat." And his servants together with the woman urged him, and he listened to their words. So he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. Now the woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly killed it. And she took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread on it. And she put it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. And they arose and went away that night. Proverbs 11. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just way is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. And of the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust. And the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. And the righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. With his mouth the godless man will destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. When it goes off the righteous, the sea rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. And the blessing of the upright is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked is overthrown. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy and sure keeps a thing covered. Where there is no abundance of evil falls, but in abundance of counsel there is safety. Whoever puts security for a stranger will surely suffer harm, and he who hates striking hands and pledges secure. A gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. A man who is calm benefits himself, and a cruel man hurts himself. The wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever suffers in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are a surprise. He is sure an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Like a gold ring in a pig's nose, is a beautiful woman without discretion. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, the expectation of the wicked in wrath. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give, and only suffers one. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. If he will curse him, he holds back rain. A blessing is on the head of him who sells it. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor. Evil comes to him who searches for. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like the green leaf. Whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. If the righteous are always repaid honor, how much more the wicked and the sinner? Proverbs, Psalm 135. Praise the Lord, praise the name of the Lord. Give praise, O servants of the Lord. O servants of the Lord. Stand in the house of the Lord, and stand in the courts of the house of our God. Praise the Lord, for the Lord is good. Sing to his name, for it is pleasant. The Lord has chosen Jacob for himself, Israel is his own possession. I know that the Lord is great, and that our Lord is above all gods. Whatever the Lord pleases, he does, in heaven and on earth, in the seas and all the deeps. He it is who makes the clouds rise at the end of the earth. He makes lightnings for the rain, and brings forth the wind from his storehouses. He was he who struck down the firstborn of each, both of man and of beast, And you is in your mysteries, Egypt. He sent signs and wonders against Pharaoh and all his servants, and struck down many nations and killed mighty kings. Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, and all the kings of Canaan, and gave their land as a heritage to his people Israel. Your name, my Lord, endures forever. Your renown, my Lord, throughout all ages. For the Lord will vindicate his people, and have compassion on his servants. The idols of the nations are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak, they have eyes but do not see, they have ears but do not hear, nor is there any breath in their mouth. And to make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. The house of Israel, bless the Lord. The house of Aaron, bless the Lord. The house of Levi, bless the Lord. You who fear the Lord, bless the Lord. Blessed be the Lord from Zion. He who dwells in Jerusalem, praise the Lord. And as this done, I shall now do the Lord's Prayer. Please bow your heads. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Peace, power, bye.